Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and welcome back to a chill session of the conclusions. Haven't done a conclusion in a long time because I can't even figure out my content strategy properly. Very confusing for me. I want to do too much things. So never mind, that's beside the point. So let's conclude the Ukraine war. Russia is winning. Thank you for watching. Do press the no. I just joking, not joking, but joking. So let's take a look at the battlefield and see what is the biggest thing that's happening. Of course, I want to first highlight that this change of front line here, that the Russians have been geolocated at this position of Pridniprovsky was interesting to me. That the Russians actually retook and protected Vyshhak and all the southern Kherson towns, so into the wilderness. So that's interesting to me. But of course, that doesn't really change much because the Russians are not going to cross the Dnipro River anytime soon. The strategic situation is just not yet for the Russians to do it. Then let's take a look at Velyka Novosilka front. So I think we're gonna do. Never mind. Just as I go along, let's see. The Russians, after the capture of Velyka Novosilka and Vremivka, is now starting to push out from this sector. And in the latest frontline changes that we have, actually the Russians are pushing north. On the western part of Vremivka, they have taken some grounds around here. They are pushing in the direction of Privilny, Buhledar, and they are also pushing out from Vremivka. They have secured the northern part of Velyka Novosilka. They are going to continue to push north. And then they are also attacking Novosilka, Novopil, Zelenopole. They are basically trying to push up north of the entire front line. Long time ago, not so long, maybe a few weeks ago, I did mention that there is a few possible places where the Russians could push up to. And I think one of the places is, where's the line? There's a river here. So the Ukrainian defense line is around here. So the Russians could potentially push up north, take Skutne, Novochertivate, Buhledar, Vinopole, Privilny. There's this defense line that they can do. Maybe another one. They secure here, maybe around here. They can do some defense line facing against the Ukrainian lines. These are the places that Russians may want to go on to. Typically, Russians like to set their objective seemingly, and I'm not saying that I know. I'm just saying that seemingly that they always try to go towards a place where they can defend. So they advance and try to hold a line that they can, which is defendable. So that's what I'm going to be expecting the Russians to do right over here. I think the line around Buhledar, could possibly be one of them. This tree line doesn't look too bad as well. So that's something that I'm going to be expecting. But they are currently pushing out. The situation at the Ulakly pocket or the Ulakly salient is getting bad, getting worse. The latest intel coming out from Ukrainian forces over at this position is now getting hit and withdrawing. The Russians have been geolocated here, meaning that they have advanced southwest of Dvorichna, and they are basically closing up the gap and trying to encircle this force. So this force, their retreat is going to be very, very tense. It's going to be really difficult, and I still cannot believe they are still holding position at here. It's like this. I mentioned before. This is like the worst place you can be deployed to, in the current front line. Like this is, once you reach your trench at this position, you very well know that you are at the furthest possible point from evacuation, and it's just horrible that you're getting deployed over there. So imagine you have to go, wow, my God, how do you going to retreat from here? So you need to travel 9 kilometers to Ulakly. It's just 9 kilometers is not particularly near for walking with full gear, with under threat of FPV drone strike and artillery strike. It's just horrendous. The Russians did declare the capture of Dashny. The Ukrainians still have not acknowledged that. And at Andriivka, things are looking really bad. The latest deep state UA mapping have shown the Russians have reached all the way to the western part of Andriivka. And based on past experience, this is the code mapping. There's a high chance that the Russians have actually taken basically all of Andriivka. Basically, almost the entirety of Andriivka is now actually taken by the Russian forces. The fact that they are here, maybe the Ukrainians still have some positions in the north. That's possible. Maybe in the south. This area here around Shevchenko is unbelievable because the forces here is now encircled. If they are there, similarly in that position, because there's Shevchenko around here. Let me move the entire arrows. So as you can see, the latest Ukrainian mapping only just still show that the Russians have taken some position here. So they clearly is trying to hold out this mapping around here for as long as they can, but they cannot deny that the Russians are pushing westward at Andriivka. So they are mapping it as narrow as possible to make it looks like the Russians have not captured the city. I think Andriivka is basically on the verge of capture at this moment. The way how it is mapped just don't make much sense as far as I'm concerned. Like how is this even sensible? I'm not sure. Like, is there Ukrainian forces in these positions? Aren't these people getting operationally encircled already? In that sense, no, shouldn't they be alarmed and or warning about this ridiculous position that the Ukrainian forces are putting themselves inside? Are they going to withdraw? So I mean, the northern part I can still believe possible, but if you look at this, yeah, the Russians basically have taken entirety of Andriivka. So that's the current situation. In the Pokrovsk front, there's nothing much have changed except for the Russians finally taking their objective, or almost taking the full objective of the highway exchange, moving between Konstantinivka and Pokrovsk. So this is the highway, and this is the highway exchange that is now taken by the Russian forces, which means that this road now is cut officially, fully. So the Russians, as I mentioned previously, did all come all the way to this point, and I did say that they are not going to hold this position, and indeed they didn't manage to hold a position. And finally, as I mentioned, they need to take all these various positions to secure the any defensive position at the highway exchange, and this is exactly what the Russians have done. They went for this one first, and then they go for the next one, and then now they take the highway exchange. So this is happening. All the other gray zones around here is just no parallel universe. I think the Russian mapping, this mapping is more correct, that the Russians have this positioned around like this. Most likely the Russians have the position like this rather than the Ukrainian mapping, which is a bit of a weird impossibility. Of course, they use a lot of gray zones to justify their mapping, but that's just not a good way to try to understand the general position. But of course, if you are if you really need it for battlefield use, like your soldier, maybe the gray zones might help, but it might be actually wrong. The Russians might have snipers in certain positions, ambushing and waiting for you to appear, and you think there is a gray zone, you walk in and you die. So I think for clearer understanding purposes, the way how we map is still better. Gray zones, I can draw the entire Ukraine as a gray zone, so it doesn't matter. The situation at Toretsk is interesting. The Russian Defense Ministry no longer talk about Toretsk and Krimsky. They have after announcing the capture on the 7th, they have no longer talk about Toretsk and Krimsky. It's only the Ukrainians that is still talking about the battle at Toretsk. So there's a good chance that Toretsk might actually really be captured by the Russians already. Based on DPS mapping, it's basically have already fully captured by the Russian forces. So So let's wait for more confirmation. I don't want to just declare it first because yeah, I feel like there is still this little bit that is not taken. In terms of Kursk, there is still all this little bit that's not taken. So we don't declare the capture. The Russians declare the capture. We just wait for Ukrainians to concede and give up. And as far as I'm concerned, the Ukrainians have never admitted the loss of New York, by the way. So so Ukrainians have not admitted they have lost New York. So that's just something to note of. Other front line, all this not particularly significant. In the Toretsk, the Limun front, Russians did not went all out for what I think they would do. To push south from to take Koloziazi and Bilohorevka, going down to the rear positions of Dvorichna and attack Yampolivka from the rear. They did not do that. There are reports about Russians attacking towards Zelina Dolena and Norway, but of course, these are could be just FPV drone strikes. So the Russians seems to be pretty happy with the current beachhead around this Rebets River region, around Ivanivka. It seems like they are kind of okay for now with this position. They are not making much pushes. The latest information south of Makievka also does shows that the Russians have taken positions. The geolocation shows that the Russian mapping is actually correct, and the Ukrainians have acknowledged the capture by remapping based on the geolocation. So that basically secures everything east of the Zerabets River. I don't think there's anything else left on the eastern part of the Zerabets River. I think by now looks like almost everything except for Toretsk and Yampolivka, everything on the eastern bank of the Zerabets River, that in case you do not know, there's a river here, there's Zerabets River, is now entirely under Russian control. This is now confirmed. Otherwise, Borova front, nothing changes strategically, nothing as Kupians. Over in the Dvorichna front, we have the Russians seemingly making a major push towards Kindrashivka from the Kalinove direction. The battle, it seems that the Russian attempts at Doroshevka and Monachivka did not seem to work out for them. Ukrainians have maybe cancelled it out. So the Russians are now making this major push for Kindrashivka. Fighting was reported here on the 10th and the 11th. So this is probably where they want to go for. Strategically, looking at this, yeah, it does put it. It is a good junction. Like you can see, there's a few roads leading to Kindrashivka. So this is a good strategic position to take. It actually denies the Ukrainian logistic in the north. So that makes some sense. So that will cut off any resupply coming from the north. And Ukrainians still can use the railway if they want to, if it's still working. I'm not sure if it's still working. So there's a railway line running through from the north as well. At least the roads. I think the roads are more important than the railway at this moment, around so close to the front line. So I think this is where the Russians are now heading for, to just condor off the Ukrainians at Kupiansk from the north. I think that makes sense in that sense. The further positions in the north tentatively doesn't look very strategically important for me, unless they're going to push much further to Shipuvate, or this Serenit Bulok. That all these junctions are more strategically important. There's still no news regarding the Russians' capture of Dvorichna. It still remains to be a claim. And Vyhledar is the same as well. We still have no confirmation of Russian full capture of it. The Russians did have a small bridgehead in the south of Topoli previously. Nothing came out of this as well, despite I thought that they would do a pincer from the border and crush the Ukrainians and take Topoli. Did not happen as well. So it's really, really difficult to make predictions in the Ukraine war. So usually I don't like to. I just say that maybe this is what they're doing. This is the analysis of what is likely is currently happening. To really do predictions like an oracle, and put your reputation on the line and say this will 100% happen. I don't do that, because because I've been wrong quite enough times. Because you just don't know the entire picture of what is currently happening on the ground. You do not know the circumstances that is facing in various battlefields, because this is Ukraine war is just such a big war. Sometimes people easily forget it. Like sometimes even I forget it. Like it's such a huge war. Every single front is on its own is as big as a war front for other countries. No country to country war. Like Armenia versus Azerbaijan, in the scale of the Ukraine war, is probably just one front. It's not even that big. But so Ukraine war, you have like a multi-country war scale in terms of the front line. So they have their circumstances. So maybe the Russians cannot push or cannot do certain things, or maybe they have just some kind of a bigger strategic purposes. In terms of the Ukrainian side, they are increasingly depending on drones. There is the latest rumor is that the Ukrainians is planning this massive no man's land using drones along all the front line. So they're going to deploy so many drones, and they have ramped up the production of the drones very effectively to the point where the plan is to create a front line fully defended by drones. How effective that's going to be depends. It remains to be seen, because the Russians themselves are producing a lot of drones. I mean, it is possible to end up in the no man's land, like a World War I situation, where the machine guns and artillery just made it impossible for both sides to push. So the advent of more and more powerful drones, and in terms of scouting, surveillance purposes, and also in terms of striking power, could potentially create such a no man's land to the point where it is just impossible to push through. But of course, drones seems to be pretty weather dependent. Like when there's heavy fog or there's heavy turbulent weather, the drones doesn't seem to be working very well. At least that seems to be the case. Like when I read some of the stories from the soldiers on the ground, it seems to like when there's fog, there's rain, snow, or snowstorm, thunderstorm, whatnot. That's the time where the soldiers feel safer, because the drones can't operate and they can actually make movements. So it's not it's not a all and all be all in terms of drone as a form of defense. So it's weaker than let's say artillery and machine gun of World War One to establish a no man's land. So that's what it is. And strategically also there is also seemingly if I'm not wrong, the new Secretary of Defense of the United States have put it clear to the NATO allies that Ukraine joining NATO is not a realistic objective at all. The United States basically is saying that Ukraine will never join NATO, and it cannot be inside the peace agreement, and to find a military victory is also not very practical. I'll probably do a separate video on that. Maybe do a reaction to the statement. I'm not sure. I'll see how it goes. But things are not looking good for the Ukrainians in the geopolitical sense as well. At the Kursk front, there is quite a number of changes. The situation is really awkward for the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians that launched a major offensive in the southeast previously. They launched and captured Czechoslovakia, Konopelka, and Vanyshevka. They were trying to push towards Ulakly and towards Konopelka. That did not work. This basically is where the initial Russian lines are. So basically, the Ukrainians only recaptured up to where they previously controlled, and they're still stuck at where the Russians' original line was. So that is a conundrum. They did reverse the Russian captures in only these few sectors. So in a way, it is still a success in terms of the counter-offensive. But this capture is pale in comparison to what the Russians did on the western flank. Because on the western flank, the Russian forces have managed to have breakthroughs. The Russians almost fully entirely captured, what the hell? They have taken a lot of Nikolaevka, Tarino. They have taken a massive position around Svetikovo. So these areas combined is already much bigger than what the Ukrainians managed to achieve. But of course, southeast of Suja is more populated, so it's more urbanized. So no, of course, we can't compare just from area, square kilometers captured. But no, the Russians did have some success, basically almost right after or in the middle of a Ukrainian offensive, which is a bit problematic. In the north, situation largely did not change except for the Ukrainian claims that they have some success on the eastern part of Krylenkoe, which just take it with a pinch of salt for now. Otherwise, I think even the Kursk front pretty much more or less the same. The Russians are doing a lot to try to hit the Ukrainian rear positions, and this seems to be an uptick of Russian action in this sense. But Ukrainians are still fighting. They still seem to very determined to fight. Of course, I'm talking about the leadership in terms of the people, the men on the ground. Yeah, here and there, hit and miss. Some willing to fight, still motivated, still very excited. There's others that is totally given up hope. So anyway, these are the conclusions. Let me know what you think in the comments. Hopefully we'll have a good peace negotiation and something that everybody can stomach. But I don't think Ukraine will. I think Ukraine is the one that will have to give up a lot, unfortunately. Thank you for watching. Press the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next update.